Setting up categories is one of the very first things to do once your site has been set up. Circle implements a tree-like category structure where subcategories are attached to parent categories. This is an example where the red circle is fiction and it has three subcategories: children's, Australian, and thriller. Some of the subcategories have their own sub-subcategories. Children has three in junior fiction, middle fiction, and young adult fiction, while Australian has two subcategories, historical and contemporary, and the thriller subcategory doesn't have any of its own subcategories. In this example, we're defining fiction as the parent category to children's, Australian, and thriller. When you allocate a subcategory to an item, it's also allocated the categories above that level in the tree, hence the red outline for children's, Australian, and thriller. This means that an item will appear in multiple categories on the website, which is a good thing. If we consider a book which has been entered into the system and mapped into fiction, children's, junior, anytime someone views the junior, children's, or fiction category, this book will appear. Typically, most shops have a category tree that will have 2 or 3 levels, but more are possible if required, and it's a fine balance between your categories being too broad and too narrow, so take some time to think the categories through. We encourage that the categories you set up roughly match the physical segmentation of your stock in the store. It'll make searching for items on your website logical, as well as making locating or putting away stock easier for your staff. This is an example of the segmentation of a physical store and the categories you may see on the website. Like in real life, you want the process of browsing books on your website to be easy. A thing to note here is that books is a parent category itself, as are prints and stationery. These are the main items which appear in the menu bar on your website and are the first things visitors see. Within the books category, there are subcategories in the shop shown by red for non-fiction, green for junior fiction, and dark and light blue for middle fiction and graphic novels respectively. Picture books have been further broken up into their own subcategories, paperback in the purple area and hardback in the yellow. There's also subcategories for all the non-fiction section, however only the light green geography books have been shown in this example for easiness of viewing. So what we've done here by deciding whatever parent or subcategory a book goes into is to allocate what is known in Circle as the primary category of the item. Basically, it's where we would expect to find this item in your physical store. It's also possible to allocate secondary categories to items. These may be unrelated categories where you might want your book to appear on your website. So if the previous example of the children's fiction title had a sports theme, you might want to allocate it to a secondary category sport, which is shown in green in this diagram. We now have 4 separate places on the website where this item will appear: fiction, children's, junior, and sport. To access your category manager, firstly, go to your site and log in. Once logged in, click on the welcome and down arrow at the top right to bring up the category manager option. Click on that. Once inside the category manager, you'll see all your categories on the left-hand side. Your site comes pre-built with a bunch of categories as a starting point. You can use or delete depending on your needs. In the category manager, you can add, remove, and hide categories, as well as move the categories within the hierarchy. Let's go through how to do that. I'm firstly going to create 2 new categories called New Releases and Staff Picks. Both are going to be parent categories. After creating a category, you can edit its information by clicking on its name. You can edit the name itself, its parent category, whether you want to display or hide it from the public, as well as any text you may want to add at the top of the category when viewed on the website. For example, in this New Releases category, we're adding a header which says this is the New Releases category, and some text underneath. A more practical example might be if you have a category called Local Authors and you want to say something about this writer's community. When you have finished editing in this What You See Is What You Get editor, click on Save and you can load up that category on your website to see your changes. If you want to set up a category directly as a subcategory, you can enter its name and simply select what its parent category is from the drop-down box. In this case, I'm setting up a category, Mary's Picks, directly as a subcategory of Staff Picks. By default, your categories are listed on the website in alphabetical order, but Circle has 2 separate mechanisms to change this order: rank and highlight. We'll start with highlight first. Basically, when a category is highlighted, it appears in bold and above a solid line, which is a very clear separation from the remaining uncategorized items in the list. To highlight a category, click on the upwards arrow in the highlight column of your category manager, and to unhighlight, click on the downwards arrow. I'm going to highlight Staff Picks and New Releases, and you'll see that they move above the highlighted line. Rank allows more fine-tuned reorganization. Basically, ranking the item places it at the top of its section, whether it's highlighted or unhighlighted, and the number in the ranking box determines the order. So if I want to reorder and put staff picks above new releases, I can set the rank of staff picks to be 1 and the rank of new releases to be 2. Scroll to the bottom to save. We can now see that the order of staff picks and new releases has changed. There's also a sort column which has select level 1 sort and select level 2 sort. These are the default sorting mechanisms used when a customer views that category on your website. Level 1 and level 2 sort are defined at the bottom of this page. By default, sorting level 1 is stock on hand, but many shops sort by title. If the system has 2 books with the same level 1 sort criteria, so for example 2 books with the same title, it decides the order they're placed in by going to level 2 criteria. Assuming we set our level 1 sort to title and our level 2 sort to stock on hand, this sorting criteria is applied to all categories which have select level 1 sort and select level 2 sort methods selected. There are cases where you may want to manually override the settings for a given category. For example, new releases might be better suited being ranked by date added rather than by title. To manually override a category, select the option from the drop-down box to the right-hand side of the category name to choose the preferred method. To delete a category, click on the checkbox at the right-hand side of the column, scroll to the bottom and click Delete Selected. That's basically it. You've now learned how to add, edit, move and delete categories. Spend some time thinking about how you want your category structure to look like, and please get in touch if there's anything here which is unclear and you need help with.